and welcome to Story Time with Nicole DeVaney. Today we're going to read a passage from Dr. Diet. Kelly was confused. She did not know what to chew. So she posted on social media and got advice from a few. Andrew said go keto, the fat bombs are neato. Sue the vegetarian said ew. Then Ray from South Beach invited her to somewhere new. Jay said come play at the carnivore. Kelly thought, only meat? What a bore. Rachel replied, fasting is the key, and she posted a picture and said, you'll look just like me. Then Paul CHEK chimed in. The diet truth is simple in its complexity. There is no one right answer for you, or for me. We are always changing, and so are our needs. A wise person avoids isms and diet books and listens to their body. The food tachometer is your compass, and your emotions and feelings are the key. The macros provide the direction, and your dream is the destiny. Today I want to share with you one of the pieces from the book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. It's on page 48, and it's called the Food Tachometer. It's something I use daily in my practice, and I don't think we've really taken the time to understand how to read it. But if you can give colored copies of this to your clients after they've taken their primal pattern dieting tests and understand whether they're a polar type, a variable type, or an equatorial type, they can better determine what ratios of macros they need in their body. I usually begin with the idea that our macros are a lot like fuel for our metabolic fire. They give us our energy. Carbohydrates, or anything that has no eyes, burns a lot like kindling. It goes up fast and quick, but you need a lot more of it over and over and over again to maintain energy. There's also the idea of liquid carbohydrates, which I think of as like gasoline. This is anything from coffee and sports drinks to fruit juices and soda pops. Then you have the other side of the macros, the proteins and fats. And in this case, we're kind of talking about anything that has no eyes. Of course, we can get fats from avocados and olive oils, but ultimately, let's just make it easy and talk about no-eye foods. These burn a lot like a cedar log and coal in fire. And we have to be the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts that builds a fire to last for 3 to 5 hours after we eat our meal. And how should we feel when we do that? Well, using the food tachometer on page 48, in the blue zone, you will see to the left, whether you're a polar, a variable, or an equatorial type, what you should feel like 3 to 5 hours after a meal. There's things like you should feel happy in a normal state of well-being. You should have good blood pressure and cholesterol if you're measuring those things. The capacity to handle stress is a big one. Women, we're not crazy. We're hormonally challenged. And this one is a lot more important because a lot of the things that we think are occurring outside of us that are creating stress inside of us really have more to do with our last meal than it does with actually what's going on. You can last good between meals with good energy. You have good mental focus and clarity of thought. There's no cravings, and you also experience an optimal response to exercise. You recover well and optimal health. So at the top of the chart on page 48, you'll see in black writing responses from too much carbohydrate. This tends to be the majority of the population. We're eating more carbohydrates than we need for our body in most cases. On the right, in white, you'll see short-term responses. This is how you're going to feel 2 to 5 hours after you've had that meal. And in the left, you see long-term responses, which is usually a lot of the problems that people are going to come see you for as a holistic health coach. So let's just talk about the short-term responses. A lot of the times, people get amazing ahas when they hear these. Headache, anxiety, you don't feel satisfied, you get hungry quickly. You might crave fat or protein. I believe this begins to occur as you start to understand and feel your food and feel how fat and protein have a grounding effect. Jumpy mind or ADHD? How many of our children are we sending off to school on a bowl of cereal just for their teachers to tell us that by 10 o'clock are in need of Ritalin or some kind of drug to help them stay focused? But the truth of the matter is that our breakfast has the capacity to keep us focused if we get our macros right. Tired but wired or jittery. I like to think about this as the kind of feeling you get when you put your head on the pillow at the end of the night. You want to go to sleep, your body's exhausted, and your mind's racing a million miles a minute. Nervous energy or energy highs with energy lows. So a lot of us don't equate these symptoms to our food. We equate them to genetics or conditions that we've been told that we are experiencing through doctors. And really, we're just one meal away from feeling better. So if we keep eating this way for days and months at a time, we can experience some of the long-term responses, such as exaggerated stress response, depression, pimples, constipation, toxicity, or insulin resistance that can lead to diabetes. Headache, neck and shoulder pain, low back pain, poor sleep, autonomic dysregulation, adrenal stress, immune suppression. Most of the people who have come to see you will be experiencing one or several of these responses to the way that they're eating. But many people don't equate it to the way they eat. They've been told it's something that they've inherited. It's in their genes. The blue arrow on the left side at the top is how to get back into the power zone when you've eaten a meal that's too high in carbohydrates or no I foods or not enough protein. Increase water intake. Avoid alcohol. Choose a fatty, low glycemic dessert. So the difference between a fatty, low glycemic dessert might be carrot cake, which is filled with tons of sugar, or creme brulee, which has a little bit of cream and eggs that give you a little bit of protein, or the I foods that keep you balanced. Avoid coffee, espresso, or tea. Exercise can burn off the excess fuel, but you have to be careful because if you keep eating high carbohydrate or lots of sugar and go to spin class to burn off the extra fuel, and you do this for years at a time, you can lead yourself into adrenal burnout. These are what we call the fit, sick people. They don't have to eat well because they exercise so much and their body doesn't give them any signs until later on that something's not working properly. Avoid sports drinks. That's a given. But my favorite way to get back into the power zone when I've had too much sugar is eat a snack high in fat or protein. And I have a little story of my experience with this. When I began eating right for my metabolic type, my daughter was still enjoying sugar. And I was able to witness one day after she had had 3 pieces of cake that I didn't feed her. I watched her go from being very excited and running all around to slowly going into an emotional upheaval. And it didn't matter what it was always an emotional upheaval after sugar about 2 hours after. So I would go to the fridge, I would get some chicken or some roast beef and say, "Would you like some chicken?" And I would feed it to her and witness within minutes her return to a normal state of well-being and go off and play, not think twice about it. And there were times where she kind of got keen on when I would come to her with the meat, and she would say, "It's not the meat, Mama." I have a cat visitor. And I would say, "Okay, well, let's just eat the meat and then we'll talk about it." I remember one time where she was so distraught that I nearly had to force her to eat a piece of chicken after she had had too much sugar. And I'll never forget the look on her face when she sat there with tears that still weren't dry, breathing, and she goes, "It was the meat, Mama." And I says, "Well, no, it wasn't necessarily the meat. It was just that you had too much of this and not enough of that." And from 3 years old on, my daughter began to feel her food. And it was incredible to witness a child understand that her emotions could be affected by what she ate. Now you can go the other direction too. At the bottom, responses to too much fat or protein. The short-term responses are lethargy, sleepy, dull, or depressed mood, mentally sluggish or slow. Heavy gut, you feel full, but you're hungry. And as you become keen to feeling your food, you might actually crave sweets or coffee or tea to bring a lift to your body when you've had that heavy grounding meal. There are the long-term responses if you keep eating this way. Autonomic dysfunction, depression, obesity, toxicity, foul body odor, low energy, craving sweets, poor response to exercise, particularly aerobic, rapid aging, hormonal dysregulation, abnormal blood pressure, adrenal fatigue, neck and shoulder pain, headache, low back pain, ill health. Now, we're going to see a lot more of these popping up these days because there's a big rage right now with huge amounts of fat and protein in our diets. If you look at the blue arrow, all of the ways of getting back into the power zone are basically working with carbohydrate foods, except for the last one, which says to use a digestive enzyme. Sometimes when I begin teaching people to eat amount of protein that their body needs, they experience short-term responses of too much protein. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is too much protein, it just means their body might not be breaking it down. So using digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid when needed can help them get back up to the macros that are necessary for their body and brain to function fully. The Food Tachometer has been one of my favorite CHEK practitioner tools in my belt to help people daily. My clients always take a colored copy home. They put it on their fridge, they food journal, and they learn how to fill their food. This way, we never have to buy a diet book again. Eat clean food, enjoy it, don't stress, and live a happy life. So cheers, I hope you enjoyed today's story time.